Will City Recorder Krager please do roll call?
Mayor Snyder, Youth Councilor Turley. Here. Council President Goodhouse.
Here.
Councilor Newton. Here. Councilor Lube.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Here. Everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does council or staff have any non-agenda items?
We have none, Council President.
Okay. And then do we have any follow-up on previous citizen communication?
Also none, Council
Okay.
President.
And looks like we don't have any citizen communication. So I'll go ahead and consider resolution of Tigard Southwest Corridor Affordable Housing Pre-Development Project Work Plan.
Good evening, Council President Goodhouse and City Council. I'm Sean Farley, Redevelopment Project Manager, and tonight we're asking Council to consider a resolution to adopt a work plan to implement the recommendations of AKA Senior Center Affordable Housing. So this work started back in 2017. We got a Metro Equitable Housing Planning and Development grant. We did some work with the community. At that time, light rail was possibly coming through an area that would have taken out some naturally occurring affordable housing. And the second phase of the project was to actually look at an opportunity site for some affordable housing that was going to be near a light rail station. We postponed this for a few months because we weren't sure where the alignment would land. But in 2018, we identified the city-owned Tigard Senior Center site as a promising site to study. It's publicly owned, and it's near amenities like the Tigard Public Library, Kenny Creek Trail. So utilizing these grant funds, we engaged architects, affordable housing finance specialists, and land use planners to determine if the project was feasible on this site. They determined that a building with about 50 units adjacent to the senior center in the rear parking lot area was architecturally and financially feasible. Staff issued a request for information for developers, and we interviewed 3 organizations, and we selected Northwest Housing Alternatives to negotiate the development agreement with. So this work plan that's in your packet is the final milestone of the Metro Equitable Housing Planning and Development Grant. And a milestone is for council to consider adoption of that work plan. And it's going to guide and inform the development of the affordable housing, affordable senior housing on the Tigard Senior Center site. Much of the activity is going to be led by Northwest Housing Alternatives. We did have our first very productive stakeholder meeting yesterday. And we had several more of those meetings, and working on the development plan, which will be brought to council hopefully in January or February.
Thank you. Does any council members have any questions? Nope. Motion?
I move to approve resolution number 19-38.
Second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? No? Will the city recorder please read the number and title of the resolution?
Resolution 19-38. A resolution adopting a work plan to implement the strategies and recommendations of the Tigard Southwest Corridor Affordable Housing Pre-Development Project.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution number 19-38 has been adopted by unanimous vote for the council members present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have agenda item number 4, consider approval of agreement with Metropolitan Land Group for urban reserve area planning. City Manager Wine will present the staff report.
Thank you, Council President and councilors. I'm Marty Wine, your city manager. Tonight you have before you a proposed agreement with Metropolitan Land Group to create urban reserve area plans for River Terrace South and West. The recommendation before you is to authorize me to sign an agreement with MLG that will allow us to accomplish all the planning and outreach activities that are necessary to expand the city's urban growth boundary. This proposed agreement stems from an objective that's part of a city council goal to ensure that Tigard grows and develops in a smart and inclusive manner, and it includes securing external resources to accomplish concept planning for River Terrace South and West in the mid-2021 cycle of urban growth boundary expansion and annex the area. When council set this goal, you'll recall that getting this planning work done was conditioned on several things that included funding for the work being provided by grants and or a private sector partner, that the city would direct the work, that existing plans and staff work programs wouldn't be slowed or disrupted by River Terrace concept planning, that we would incorporate employment land planning into at least the work for River Terrace West. We would use equitable development principles in order to do the planning, and that we would make the River Terrace area development ready by the next expansion window, which is in mid-2021. So in order to meet all the conditions of this council goal, we realized that we needed to negotiate an agreement with MLG that would agree that all parties would work together toward that application in 2021, meaning that concept plans would be completed for sure for River Terrace South by that time, and maybe for River Terrace West, and then the community planning process would follow that. We had to outline in a fairly detailed way the responsibilities of city staff and MLG, and including funding using consultants, which either party could work with to get the work done, and what we would each be responsible for. And what you'll see in the agreement before you is a fairly detailed scope of work that's attached to the agreement that outlines how much the work of each party would cost. And what we did was use a time and materials basis to put together that agreement. And I'll say in a minute part of the reason for doing that. So for the city's estimate of time and tasks, we calculated the number of hours that each staff person at the city level would need to spend on the preparation of the concept plan. We identified 3 positions that would need to be hired to complete the planning effort. That includes a senior planner in our community development department, a senior project engineer in public works engineering, and a senior management analyst in finance. We recognize on the city side that it's impractical to recruit and hire something less than a full-time staff member. And so the council has before you a separate item as part of our supplemental budget tonight to hire those 3 staff people, and it's a single FTE for each of those positions, plus some supplemental budget for city attorney services as well. Then that's on tonight's agenda as a separate item. But it's part of this agreement incorporates the assumption that we would be hiring 3 staff to be able to do this work. We also recognize that one of the reasons that we structured the agreement this way is that some staff positions work will be necessarily disrupted and can't be hired on a consulting or a separate staffing basis. So, for example, we're not going to hire another assistant community development director, but that person is going to end up, Mr. McGuire is going to end up overseeing some of the work that will go into using an hourly rate and a time and materials basis seemed like the best way to structure this agreement. The agreement includes language that allows for the partners to have oversight on the work through project management meetings throughout the project. And we've appreciated MLG's willingness to find a workable model to do this concept planning together. The Metropolitan Land Group representatives are here tonight, and they're available to speak to any questions that you have of them, or about this partnership that's proposed in this agreement, or about the future UGB expansion that would come along with what happens after the concept plan. So with that, I will answer any questions you have, and I know that our agreement partner is also here to answer questions you might have.
Are there any questions? And I also forgot that on the last agenda item, the mayor did give me some opinions on each of the measures. So the previous one he did support it and moving forward. So after everyone's done discussing, I'll also read what the mayor had to say on this topic as well. You have a question, Councilor Newman?
Yeah, I have a few comments, questions. So,
Sure.
okay. So first of all, I want to compliment the staff and MLG for doing the scope of work, because it was very detailed. And as a former planner, you know, I know that there's a lot of work that goes into doing these plans. So I think the approach, you know, is the right way to go. I just have some concerns about the fact that technically the goal isn't being met by the fact that we're going to be having to have some of our staff working on this in lieu of other projects. I'm concerned that this project not disrupt anything else that's of a high priority for the city. And, you know, we talk about Tom McGuire, but I notice in the scope of work, there's some other existing planners that will be needed to be called on to work on this project. So I have concerns about that. I realize we're being reimbursed for that time, but that's time we're losing to other projects. So I have a concern about that. The city manager explained that and how we would use the staff that we're hiring. I'm also concerned about using general fund to fund any of these positions, because that's where our issues are right now. And, you know, we're contemplating going out to the community to ask for funding for police. And so I'm a little bit concerned about general fund being used for this. I think if we're using, it's possible I could get past that if we're using these staff for other high priority projects, Southwest Corridor or something tied to our recent performance audit, but I do have a concern about that as well. And I'm also concerned about the other strategy under Goal 3, which talks about, is Goal 3.3, which the city manager spoke to a little bit. We want to make sure that to study the viability for any future expansions of the city's urban growth boundary to include employment land, so that new growth and ongoing service costs to Tigard residents and businesses are balanced. And we talked about having some employment lands in West River Terrace, but we've got an issue with adding a lot more residential land to our tax base that's going to continue to skew that balance. The other thing that I was curious about, and I may have misread I went back and read all of our minutes when we discussed this, but I don't recall that we committed to submit West River Terrace as part of the urban growth application. In reading all the materials that were included, it looks like staff is saying it makes sense to do them together. I guess my question is, I know we've got some work to do with the UGB planning that King City's doing, and I would be interested to know how much of the concept planning work we would need to do anyway as part of that, because we can't just tell King City to go away. They're working on that now. So I do have some concerns about this. Again, I'm concerned about putting this project ahead of some of our other more pressing needs. I think this is a good plan. I'm not objecting to doing planning on this. I'm a little bit concerned about the timing and disruption to some of our other priorities, and also using general fund when we're tight right now and we don't know what's going to happen with our levy that we may or may not go out for. So in a nutshell, those are my concerns.
Would you like me to answer any or some of the concerns you've raised, or some comments? Okay. I'd also invite our staff team, if you have comments or would like to, I know there are folks from each department who are here. If there's anything that you'd like to add or to supplement, you're welcome to come up and help me with answering some of these points that were made. As I understand it, the employment land, we will only have the opportunity to plan for employment lands in River Terrace West, and there are not opportunities for River Terrace South. And so I think what I would say is that throughout, thank you, Tom, for coming up, if you have anything that you'd like to add. Part of the reason that the agreement is drafted to reference both River Terrace South and West is that I think we were trying to strike the balance between the staff perspective is that it will be very challenging to reach a concept planning phase that would allow us to request a UGB expansion for River Terrace West by the upcoming deadline. But our development partner, MLG, asked that we do the best we can, if it is possible, to concept plan and apply for both areas, and we can be ready in mid-2021 to include River Terrace West. I don't know that we've made an assessment yet about whether or not that application will be possible.
Well, correct. The agreement was set up, all of our discussions was around concept planning both areas with the idea that we would look at submitting South River Terrace in a mid-cycle UGB request. Metro's rule is that only residential land can be submitted in mid-cycle. So that's where there's that conflict with the other pole. So we'll know more, obviously, as we go through the concept planning and we start to evaluate these lands and see what makes the most sense. But any mid-cycle request for UGB expansion would have to be residential.
I do remember on that process too. I think we were trying to, if it made sense to combine both of them, at least during some of the process. I think we decided during the beginning of the year to look at doing as much as we could that maybe made sense. I think that's why that's in there, to combine those two together.
Can I would say that I think we agreed that concept planning both of them at the same time made sense, but I think the council was also crystal clear that we expect employment land to come out of one of those areas. So at least I was under the impression, and I think we had multiple discussions, that one would be submitted during the mid-cycle and then the other one would be submitted at a different time to include that employment land, because that's part of the reason we're in a pinch. So I think we were all clear that continuing to add residential property without employment land is not the way that we wanted to go.
I think staff and council I agree that we're clear on that point. I think it remains to be seen whether the timing for submitting River Terrace West is going to be possible in mid-cycle. You referenced King City and planning for, I think the council acknowledged when you were setting the goal that the planning that King City is doing and the timing for us to make application probably, that 2021 would be a good time to be sorting through those issues now. That includes transportation planning, stormwater planning, water, planning for water service. And so for that reason, one of the content of our discussions with MLG was about the need to do more than just meeting the requirements of Title 11 for Metro's purposes, but while we were putting together concept plans, there were going to be some more, I'll just call them more detailed analyses that included, what will happen with King City, our boundaries, and those system plannings that were more involved than just meeting the Title 11 and application requirements. So we do need to, sorting out the issues with King City, make this a timely planning project for us. I don't know any other comments related to the priorities ahead of other processes. In the case where the two staff who are being hired in engineering and finance have something less than full-time work that would be done on these urban reserve area plans or these concept plans, we have other high priority work that the council cares about, including for engineering, Southwest Corridor, and the potential for working on other CIP projects as funding allows. And on the finance side, you saw in the performance audit recommendations that we're going to be looking at some major system replacements, such as for our financial system, that the senior management analyst position could focus on for the balance of the time that they were not working on concept planning. So we feel that by hiring a full-time staff person, that there are still existing priority projects that could be worked on by these staff. I think that's all.
And the general fund comment, that was really your response to that?
I guess what I'll say is, I acknowledge the concern. I think we did the best we could to meet as many of the dimensions of this goal as were set up, and what we're saying to the council is that we don't see a way. We are We are asking you to acknowledge that there is some general fund subsidy for hiring these staff, and we can get other work done besides, but I'm not sure that we have an alternative that's a good one.
And then I guess the last thing I would point out is I did look at take another look at the recent goal update that staff provided and see that the, what are we calling that? Employment land survey work is starting in January and will wrap up sometime about this time next year. Maybe this question for you, Tom. Do you think, are we jumping ahead by doing this in advance of that work being done, or do you think that's an issue? We haven't started the employment lands work yet, so.
No, I think timing will actually come together.
Okay.
With all three projects that are going to be, there's a study that we're going to be coming out with consultant help with that will be able to inform three different projects in the future.
Councilor Anderson, do you have any? No?
Very detailed concept plan, very detailed with the hours and the cost estimates. If we get close to this, bravo. Really a lot of work for 2 years of work. So I love the map. I know, we've got a willing partner with MLG, so we should take advantage of that now and do both areas. So, good job.
Councilor Wood?
I would just say that I know that this has been worked on for a very long time, and many parties were involved. And to echo, I think it was incredibly detailed. It was really helpful to read through the entire agreement and all of that to understand what was going on. So thank you for all of that work to the staff.
Yes, Councilor Trilly. And I'll read the mayor's statement real quick. He said, "It's clear that staff from the private development community have put a lot of work into this agreement and the application. I'm pleased to thank the staff on my behalf for this significant effort this took. It appears this agreement is the spirit of the city council goal, even though it doesn't perfectly recapture senior staff costs. This is also a concrete," my thing cut off a little bit, "but ensure development pays for itself," and he does support moving this forward as well. And I echo that too. I think this has been something that's been in the works for years. It was a prior council goal that we were working on, and we finally got together. I think it's a great model too to go forward that a lot of people say development paying for itself, so I think this is a great partnership going forward that we can work with the development community, get something done, and find a way to come to a solution, get projects done, and especially in a city where we have a tight budget. I think this is a perfect fit. Anyone else have any questions, or if not, a motion for approval?
One more. Going forward, I guess after our discussion, my biggest concern is the general fund, and it's going to continue to be my biggest concern going forward forever. If we are going to use this staff for some of our other projects, it would be great when we're doing council goal update to sort of flag that. At least for me, you could do that. But I'm really concerned about losing track of that because, every time we divert money from the general fund, not that it's not important work, I'm more concerned about some of the areas where, we really need to shore up services, and we're not doing that. So, thanks.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the agreement with Metropolitan Land Group for urban reserve area planning.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No?
Passes 3-1. Thank you. Item number 5, public hearing to consider approval. To consider approval of resolution for first quarter supplemental budget. I'd like to open the hearing. Announce if anyone wants to sign up and give testimony. Anyone who wants to testify that hasn't, do I do that for testimony right now? Or? Okay. Anyone that would like to testify that hasn't signed up or would like to speak? Don't see any. Staff report, Senior Management Analyst Kang and Finance Information Services Director LaFrance will present this item.
Good evening, Council President and Councilor. My name is Steve Kane, Senior Management Analyst from Finance and Information Services, and with me tonight is Toby LaPlante, Finance and Information Services Director. We're here to present fiscal year 2020 first quarter supplemental budget, and agenda item summary in front of you should contain the detailed description and financial impact of the request. And I'll be describing the key items that are impacting the city services. First, from the city management, and of the city management request, human resources has a request to increase 0.40 FTE, consists of 0.20 FTE for HR business partner and 0.2 FTE for the HR and risk assistant position. Both of these positions are currently at 0.80 FTE. The request is driven by the increased workload and operational demands to meet current organizational demands requirements for the HR services. And this request is consistent with the recommendations made in the citywide performance audit. Next, from the city management is also from the HR, and in response to the Oregon's Equal Pay Act, city established the matrix to help determine a systematic and non-discriminatory method to set pay. And this matrix, based on this matrix, city has conducted a review of the citywide pay review and resulted in pay increase for 20 staff members. Next, Finance and Information Services. One of the requests from the Finance and Information Services requesting request from IT, and it's for the software upgrade to city's computer systems and infrastructure components to increase the security posture. This request originated from the police department's recent criminal justice information systems audit, and this also a response to the citywide performance audit and also implementing the recommendation from the IT strategy plan. Next is from Finance, and Finance has a couple of requests that we're going to mention. First one is from to increase the appropriation to accommodate the 3.5% COLA increase for SEIU and non-represented staff. And next request is the one that we discussed, request for the River Terrace South and West Urban Reserve Area planning. And we're requesting to authorize 3.0 FTE in finance admin, planning, and public works engineering to perform the work concept plan, including these urban reserve areas, and to satisfy the Metro Title 11 requirements, and down the road apply for the urban growth boundary expansion in 2021. This request will create an appropriate foundation for successful community planning in the future. Lastly, CIP. The total CIP request is $1.2 million impacting 10 CIP projects. Of that, carry forward from the prior year appropriation is $683,000, and the remainder is new request due to the mostly construction bids coming in higher than anticipated. Overall, the fiscal year 2020 first quarter budget supplemental will increase the budget by $2.3 million across 20 city funds, and of that, $70,000 will be coming from reserves for one of the CIP projects. 1.1 will be coming from contingencies, and rest will be coming from additional revenues, including the energy reimbursements. Staff is recommending the approval of the resolution implementing the first quarter supplemental. And now, if you have any questions, we have staff here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councilor Lube?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First, I just would like to acknowledge, I know that the pay equity adjustments were a lot of work, and there wasn't a whole lot of clarity on how to do all of that. So I want to commend Director Bennett and anyone who went through that and got that all taken care of for us. The question that I actually have is in regards to the last item, the vacation cash out for the Parks and Recs manager. I'm curious as to our accrual policy and why this isn't something on our books as something that we would expect to pay out. So curious for the adjustment reason.
So we do accrue for the leave that's been earned. What we need to be able to do is, for that position, we have essentially budgeted or appropriated as if that position was going to work 20, 80 hours. With this cash out, that position, we have to actually pay for it for the time that person's working, plus the accrued vacation, which will become an expense against our appropriations now. And eventually we're going to fill that position with somebody new. And so for that position, we will be paying more than 2,080 hours during the course of this fiscal year. So we just need to appropriate the money we've been setting aside for that vacation accrual.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor Anderson?
No, I'm good.
Counselor Newton? Good answer. Yeah, great report, thank you. Discussion? None? Take a motion for approval.
I move to approve resolution 19-39.
First, can we close the public hearing?
We'll close the public hearing, and then we ask for a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 19-39.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Will the city recorder please read the number and title of the resolution?
Resolution 19-39, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2020 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Public Works, Policy and Administration, and Community Services.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 1939 is adopted unanimously as presented. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and now switch hats, and we'll switch to the Town Center Development Agency. Agenda item number 6, public hearing to consider approval of resolution for the first quarter Town Center Development Agency supplemental budget. I'll go ahead and open the hearing. And I'll see if there's anyone from the audience who'd like to speak or anyone signed up, which I see none. Staff report, Senior Management Analyst Kang and Finance and Information Services Director LaFrance will present this item.
Good evening. My name is Steve Kane, Senior Management Analyst from Finance and Information Services, and Toby LaFrance, Finance and Information Services Director. We're here tonight to present 2021 first quarter TCDA supplemental budget. And the supplemental budget for TCDA contains 3 items. 2 of the items are for CIP, and one of them is a carryover. The other one is a construction bid coming in at Cairo. So that's a new request. And the third one is the carry forward of the unspent funds for the Urban Renewal Improvement Program Opportunity Fund. And overall, the fiscal year 2020 first quarter supplemental budget will increase the budget by $254,000, and the expenditure increase is supported to unanticipated beginning fund balances. And these supplemental will not change the reserve for the TCDA. Staff is recommending the approval of the resolution, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Counselor Anderson?
Yeah, just a question about the restroom. For contractors just very busy, what's the big... no, everybody left you.
yeah, it's a custom model, so,
It's being made, it's kind of a prefab building, right?
and it has to be delivered here, installed.
So the custom part cost additional 80 grand?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been told.
Okay.
You might know more. Public Works is managing the project.
We have a question about the restroom for you.
Hi, Councilor Joe Barrett, Business Manager for Public Works.
Thank you. Counselor Anderson has a question.
So just why the cost escalation on the restroom?
So when we actually went out for bid, I came before you guys as the public contract manager at the time. For this particular project, all the bids that we've kind of gotten have come in higher than we anticipated. And that's where this is showing, just like the other components of Heritage Trail, the cost has gone up. The restroom specifically, we looked at alternative, including just a single stall restroom at the time. Engineering did a review and found that really we couldn't go with anything outside of what's before you tonight. So that's why we're asking for the additional funding for this restroom. It was simply just our cost estimate that we originally based it on. They no longer manufactured that restroom of all things, so we had to look at alternatives.
Okay. Great, thanks. Thanks for
Councilor
coming back
Newton?
in.
Youth Councilor. Okay. And there's no response to public testimony. Any further discussion? I'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve TCDA resolution number 19-08.
Second?
Any further discussion? Will the city recorder please read the number and title of the resolution?
TCDA Resolution 19-08, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2020 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Town Center Development Agency, Urban Development.
No discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The TCA Resolution 19-08 is adopted as presented. Thank you, everyone. And now we'll go ahead and close and reconvene back as a city council. And do we have any non-agenda items? No executive session scheduled. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Done.